Hello?
Hello, is this Larry Kessler?
Yes.
Yes, this is Ray Brazen.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
All right.
It's amazing to be talking to you. But anyway, let's get started.
Okay.
Well, how did it all begin for the GODZ? What's the best picture you can give me? Where did you guys originally come from? Were you guys all New Yorkers? Or,
yeah, sort of, yeah. As a matter of fact, we met at I met them at Sam Goody's, Paul and Jimmy.
Uh-huh.
At Sam Goody's when he had one store on 49th Street.
Uh-huh.
And, we all started working there.
Uh-huh.
And I was like a songwriter kind of person, and Paul was like a music business person, and so was Jimmy. We all were like musicians, and we all worked in the rock section at Sam Goody's, so that's sort of how we met.
Uh-huh.
And that was sort of the beginning of it.
How did you start working for ESP? Because you were a salesman for ESP, right?
Right. Yeah, we heard about the job. Stolman was looking, you know who Stolman is?
Yeah, of course, Bernard Stolman, the guy who ran the label.
Right. And he was sort of looking for somebody, and he needed a salesman, and he sort of knew one of the guys that was working in the basement there, doing the stock work.
Mm-hmm.
I guess this was 65.
Mm-hmm.
And he told Jimmy about it, and Jimmy sort of didn't want it. You know, Jimmy wasn't really the salesman type, and he asked me if I wanted it, and I said, yeah, well, I'll go talk to the guy. I talked to Bernard, and we seemed to hit it off pretty good, and I started working for him.
Did you know of anything about ESP? Had you ever heard of the label before you
I knew
job?
because I knew about the jazz, and he was, and I knew about the Fugs had just started really the Folkways. He had bought a thing from, you familiar with Folkways?
Yeah, yes.
Well, he had bought something from the fellow there that, and taken over the Fugs from Folkways and the Holy Modal Rounders and that type of stuff. And of course, Bernard was a lawyer who handled the Billie Holiday estate and Charlie Parker estate.
Oh, wow. And later on, there were Billie Holiday and Charlie Parker records on ESP.
You got it. Well, you see, he went to work for the artists' families, and then he just figured, well, as long as the record companies are screwing him, maybe I can do the same thing,
Yeah, Jim McCarthy, in the interview that I have with him up on the site, which came from some fanzine, he said something pretty much along the same lines as what you just said. He's like, okay, these people are used to being ripped off.
Yeah, well, his theory was pretty good because how he figured was how, he didn't, it isn't like he needed the money and he did it for personal gain. He sort of did it as to expose new artists, so, that was his, I guess that he figured that it was okay as long as he put it back into the record company, which he did, he used the artists. Now, I don't know, if he ever paid to Billie Holiday or their families or whatever. I don't know how he did that, but...
Did he ever pay you guys?
No.
I didn't think so.
No. Well, we never really, as far as he was concerned, we never sold any records, which I know as a fact we did because I worked there, so I knew we were selling records, but, well, we didn't get paid yet and this and that, and, that was okay because through those years, but then there were the many years after I stopped working there that, we sold records overseas, and, I moved to Pittsburgh, and my babysitter's mother and father had a GODZ record, because she saw my record, and she said, my parents have this record, crazy record, and I'm going, hey, like I was in that part of that band, and, great, and here, so if they had it.
Did her parents ask for your autograph?
No, I never really, stressed it or anything because, I really was never into that, but, it was like, people all over the country, people I've run into that knew I was part of the band. Oh, yeah, my friend used to have that record, or my roommate in college, or this and that.
Yeah.
So we sold records, you know.
Yeah, well, I've seen a lot of different pressings too of the GODZ records. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
I mean, not just the stuff that got reissued on other labels, but also, there's many distinctly different pressings. Like, I think I've come across like at least 10 different variations on the Contact High with the GODZ pressing.
Yeah, different colors and different. There's Italian pressings and Dutch pressings, and But once you enter into the underground, in quotations, that automatically means you're never going to get paid. Number one, and don't expect to get paid.
Yeah.
I mean that's part of the deal.
Yeah, that's true.
Being in the underground means that you really don't care about being commercial, and being commercial means you're not, if you're not commercial, you're not going to get rich, and nobody's ever going to give a shit about whether they see you or they don't see you, or if you play or if you don't play.
Yeah.
That's part of the deal,
Yeah.
So you can't really get mad about it because you knew going in that you were anti-establishment, and that's the way it was going to be, and proven by the fact that at least most of the people in the GODZ would be in their 60s by now.
Yeah.
They've never made any money. We're living proof that's a fact.
That's a fact.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm sure none of us ever expect to get paid at this point. So, I mean, it's something you have to know going in. If that's what, unless you want to say, hey, we're like Beatle copies, or we're like almost as good as Incubus, but we're a little different,
Yeah.
If you're any different, don't expect that you're ever going to,
Okay.
If you're living and that's going to be your art, well then, hey, this is the way it's going to be.
Okay. Is it true that you guys auditioned over the phone for ESP?
No.
Absolutely
not. No.
Jim McCarthy said that in his interview.
Well, he's either crazy or stupid, or he's lost his memory. No. I remember setting it up because Stallman didn't. When he found out that I was in a band, he was really pissed at me personally because I never told him that I had anything to do with music. I just told him I was going to be a salesman.
Yeah.
So Jimmy had already auditioned for him one time, and he said, you sound too much like everybody else. Okay?
Yeah.
Turned him down.
Yeah.
And Paul, Paul sounded like everybody else, so he didn't want anything to do with him. I mean, other than the fact that Jimmy was pretty talented. He was a good singer, and he was in a band, but he just sounded. And Stallman if you sounded even remotely like anybody, you could forget it. He was not going to put you on his label. So I told him I was in this band. Well, he got all upset. Oh man, I don't want to hear this. This is all, you never told me that you were a musician. I'm just really telling you from my point of view.
Yeah.
Which is the way it happened. And he said, I'm not interested in Jimmy, I've already seen he's a great singer and he's like a blues singer, but and Thornton, he's like this and that. But we were rehearsing, and we were different.
Yes.
And we came up with this White Cat Heat, and we had a few other songs. I said, well, why don't you do this? Why don't you come? And at that time, there was a secretary that worked there. We were sort of friendly with, and I said, look, you don't have to come to my apartment anywhere. You come to this. He says, well, I'll go to, I forget the young lady's name. Young lady now, she's probably... But anyway, he said, and I'll go there, and look, if I don't like it, I'm going to tell you I don't like it, and this is this, and that's that. I said, fine, and I was doing great as a salesman. I got Fug records in the Corvettes, and and Alexander's. I had long hair. I was freaky, and I would walk in, and I was talking to people all over the country on the phone, and I was doing a real good job for him. He really liked me, but he wanted me to stay with ESP and not get off on a tangent of being a musician, because he knew how that was going to end up, which of course it did end up that way.
Yeah.
So anyway, he goes down, and this was on the Lower East Side. I think it was on 8th Street or 9th Street. We go down there, and Jimmy and by the way, Jay, who was the art director there, had joined the band by then. And we were jamming at my apartment, which was on 11th Street. And we had been jamming for like a month and a half, and we were playing all kinds of crazy instruments, and I won't get into the personal aspects of where we were at the time or anything else, but we were pretty freaky at that point. And, you know, that was 65 or 66. I mean, we were pretty well into the whole Village scene. And he comes down there, and we started, he was hysterically laughing. We did White Cat Heat, and we must have freaked him out. And he was hysterical. You know, he was like, "Oh man, you guys are unbelievable, and this is this, and that's that." And actually, what he did, we called that song Meow. He said, "You gotta," and he actually named that song. He says, "You gotta call that White Cat Heat." And we went, "Oh, great title, you know. Okay, cool."
You wanted to make it sound like an avant-garde title.
Yeah, more, but it was like we were white cats, and I guess we appeared like we were in heat or whatever. And it just, like, that was our thing. He told us that we could go in and do a single. We had 2 songs, but really we had like 8 or 9 songs. And
you just went in and recorded them all.
We went in, and instead of recording a single, we did one song after another. And the engineer even played. He got all excited. This guy Andrew, and he loved us, and we like improvised like 9. We had, most of these songs were like skeleton songs. And of course, we were probably the first band to ever do a Hank Williams song.
Yeah.
You know, and stuff like that. You know, he was the one cover song we had on that. And, you know, for a Lower East Side band to do a country song at that time was like, I mean...
Nowadays there's 9 million Lower East Side bands doing...
And they're all doing country song, you know, like...
Yeah.
I mean, we just did so many things. We were first, you know.
Yeah. How long was that first recording session? How long did it take?
I would say 5-6 hours.
5-6 hours? You just went in and you did it? And
we did it, and he was infuriated and until he heard the album. And he said, "You mean you were supposed to go in for like 2 hours and do this, and you went in and you did 6 or 7 hours, and this is that?" I said, "Yeah, but listen to it and see, you know, whether you like it or not." He liked it.
That's great.
And that was the beginning.
And that was the beginning.
Yeah.
And then you guys recorded GODZ 2 after that.
Yep.
And was that all one session too, or was that?
No. At that point, we went through a lot of changes from GODZ 1 to GODZ 2. We started getting hooked up with certain people. We started actually rehearsing, and we got instruments. We went to Ampeg, and there were just so many things that happened between those points. We played the scene, and we started going around in the Greenwich Village. You know, this was during the period, like, from the time we started really recording seriously, and we used to play like Gertie's Folk City and all the open mic type places, you know.
Yeah.
And we were like,
Did you get a good audience that way?
Oh my God, we were so outrageous for that time. We were like pre-punk. We would argue with the audience, and they thought we were kidding, and because we came out with a sultry and acoustic guitar and a plastic flute and big drumsticks and just the most ridiculous. And we'd tune up for like a half an hour, and people would start yelling. But certain people just loved us, you know. They loved us. But the freaky people liked us, but the regular people, you know, that were going down to Greenwich Village from Brooklyn or something, you know.
Yeah, that wasn't what they were looking for.
No, they were looking for some kind of folk singer or something. And we would come out there, and we were just, as far as they were concerned, we were totally outrageous.
Wow.
And I mean, as far as everybody was concerned, I mean, even the Fugs had some type of show. You know, they were dirty and all that, but we had we were just totally anarchy on stage, and the way we acted and what we did, and we were just outrageous.
Did you get to play live frequently, or was it only...
Yeah, well, yeah, and then we were thrown out of places, and we did different things. We did a Miss Greenwich Village, and just the guy was trying to get us off the stage, and he was pulling my car. We wouldn't leave.
But this was a Miss Greenwich Village, what, like a beauty pageant type thing?
Yeah, it was a beauty pageant. It was supposed
and you guys were the band?
Yeah, they had no idea. People just figured we had an album, so we were like everybody else. No one really ever listened to it at that point.
Oh, the GODZ. Oh, yeah, I've seen their record.
Yeah, you know, I've seen their record around. They sound sort of like the Lovin' Spoonful, or they sound like, you know, they had no idea.
It's like, is it true that, like, the Ronettes came to you guys? They were looking for a backup band?
Well, we played a place called the Battle of the Psychedelic Bands versus the straight bands, like the Mothers of Invention, and this was out at one of the big clubs in Long Island. Mm-hmm. And we were like the Mothers of Invention were really like a pretty tight, you know, they were like really tight and, and this and that. And the place totally freaked out, and no one wanted to play, and so they sort of asked us, and we like were too freaked out to really play ourselves. I mean, but they were there and they were talking to us. They wanted us to play. I don't remember that really that well. Mm-hmm. I mean, I don't really remember anything like that.
Were you guys doing a lot of drugs, or?
You know,
were drugs a big thing in the GODZ? I imagine you guys, you know, I mean, Jim McCarthy's holding a joint on the cover of the first record.
Well, we were like the first, I guess you could say, psychedelic. Mm-hmm. I mean, people would listen to us, and if they listened to us like high or something, they had a whole, we were like a black, you know, like a black light painting, you know.
That kind of thing.
Yeah, so if you heard us and you were just listening to us, we'd mean one thing. If you heard us in a different circumstance, we portrayed a whole different thing.
Yeah. So I can understand that.
Yeah. I mean, people used to play our records to freak other people out, basically. Yeah. And they'd say, "Hey, man," and I guess they sat around and got high, and then they played our record, and then we totally freaked out you know, parties and stuff.
Yeah. So what happened to the GODZ in between the second album and the Third Testament? It seems like a lot of changes were going on.
Yeah, we went through a lot of changes at that time. Jay was leaving the band. As a matter of fact, as far as I know, nobody has heard from him since like '69.
I was looking on the net. I was doing a search for Jay Dillon on the internet, and I found some guy in New Jersey. And I actually wrote to him. I said, "Are you Jay Dillon?" And he wrote me back like very hostile. He was like, "No, fuck off. I'm not that Jay Dillon." I'm like, all right, no offense. I completely didn't bother him anymore. But I always wondered if that really was Jay Dillon, and he just didn't want to be bothered.
Yeah, that very well could be. Because a lot of things happened, personal things, him, and he was like much more of an intellectual than the three of us, I always thought.
I don't know, he always struck me as being the introverted member of the band, even before I knew anything about.
Yeah, he was, and he was a real good guy. I always liked Jay.
Yeah.
And, he just got real disgusted with us.
Why did he get disgusted?
I guess the lifestyle, you know, our lifestyle.
Yeah. Okay. Well, getting back to the Third Testament. So you guys were kind of still together, but you weren't together, but you were.
No, yeah, we were sort of together. I mean, we were sort of together, but it was like the last of it, you know. We had a lot of people come in as the Multitude and as the Dogs, and we put them on other instruments. I mean, it was a pretty good time as far as Well, you know what happened in a way to Jay? Jay started working at that time. I don't even know whether you remember I Magazine.
Yeah, I've heard of I Magazine.
Well, the people that founded I Magazine, they're Michael Soldan and Judy Parker. They did our second album cover.
Yes.
And he was very, very close with them. And he went to work for I Magazine at one point. And they were, they both drowned in an accident out on Long Island.
Really?
Yeah.
Michael and Judy?
Yes.
Wow.
They disappeared on Long Island. I don't think they were ever found.
When was this? Late 60s?
Yeah, I would say maybe 68 or 69. And he was a photographer, an English photographer. She was from the Midwest somewhere, and they were really such great people. And they used to photograph the English people that came in, like the English bands, like the Who and Stones and whoever would come in. And in order to, we used to rehearse at their loft. They loved us. We were really getting good. I mean, as far as our art went, and as far as our music went. And they used to play a lot of our original tapes, and they were maybe 50 or 60 of our practice tapes, that we...
Wow.
And they'd play these tapes for the English, and these guys would, freak out, and he would take the pictures when they would listen to our stuff. So,
Was he doing that deliberately to get, these freaked out...
Yeah.
What is this?
Right.
While they're going, what the hell is this? They're like...
Exactly.
That's great.
And, it was devastating to Jay. Jay, I don't think, because they were like his mentors, and they were sort of our mentors too. And we all really, we really cared for them. And when they sort of died, when that happened, Jay sort of freaked. And
Jay was pissed off that they were playing your tapes to...
Oh no, Jay was upset when they drowned.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, when they drowned, and they took so many photographs of us, and that wasn't why he was upset. But I mean, they were like our mentors. We could rehearse there, and we could anytime we really wanted, and they had a big loft, and they were real nice to us.
But when they died, it really screwed up Jay Dillon.
Exactly. Yeah.
So he was just never the same again after that. And,
exactly.
And that was about the time he left the GODZ.
Right. All in that period of time. Yes.
Wow. And then they sounded like they were pretty much your biggest supporters there that you ever had.
Yes. They certainly were. They certainly were.
Wow.
They appreciated what we were doing, and we appreciated them.
So pretty much the band broke up. You guys were working with other people, and then sometime around the early 70s, Bernard approached you to do another GODZ record? How did that happen?
Yeah. My relationship with him sort of changed after that.
Well, you had stopped working.
I'd stopped working for him. And a lot of things happened. I mean, all this time I had a family. I had kids.
Yeah.
And, I was working, and Jimmy was working, and Paul was doing whatever Paul does. And in the early 70s, I had moved back to New York. I was in Baltimore. I had broken my neck in '69. And I was in Baltimore. I had broken my neck in Baltimore and attended a funeral, and then
Wow, how did that happen?
Dove into shallow water.
Oh, yeah, that'll do it.
Yeah. And we come back, and my lady at the time, and somehow or another I got hooked back up with Bernard. This was maybe early 70s. And started working for him again.
Yeah.
And worked for about a year, and started doing real good again, because I was like an ace for him. I could do things, and I was just like a music business kind of person.
Yeah. Plus, you'd already had the experience beforehand.
Yep. I had worked for distributors. I just knew the inner thing. I've been in the music business for a while. As a matter of fact, I had a record out in '61, and I had been in the music business since like '59.
Wow, you had a record out in 1961?
Yep.
Wow, tell me about that.
That was called Wonderful Days. It was on Laurie Rust Records. I think it was by Miles Standish.
Miles Standish. Okay.
All right. Well, anyway.
But getting back to Godzundheit.
Yeah.
So basically, you talked to him about doing another record, or he approached you to do another record?
He sort of thought that it might be a good idea if we try to pull together, but really, we just did our stuff with our own bands, and we did. I think that we did the good Whiff and Poof song.
Yeah. Well, that was the same song that was on the single.
Yes.
That you had out.
Yes.
But that ended up on there.
On the album, right. And
any particular reason why that's on the album?
I think just to give authenticity to the album. That was probably the only song on that album that we had done as a band.
Yeah. There were a few other things where you guys were all together and singing and playing acoustic guitar together.
Yes.
Like there's that version of Jumpin' Jack Flash.
Right. Right. Well, we had that was Paul's band and some of my band members in that, and so it really wasn't us.
Yeah.
It was just something that proved that we could sound like every other band, I think.
Yeah.
You know, if we chose to do that.
Yeah. You did your own record. As a matter of fact, that's the one that has the phone number.
Yeah.
The God's Revival record. How did that happen?
Well, I did that because I was, and actually I now own the name Gods. I mean, I went through the whole legal process. You know, the band in Cleveland had the name.
Yeah, of course. Yeah,
but they let it go. And I gobbled it up. Through all the right legal channels, so
Oh, so now the name's not theirs anymore. So
absolutely
it's just,
not. It's
fine. Okay.
Yeah, I'm glad that's over.
Okay.
Because I put an end to that.
Yeah, you were the one who finally stepped in and.
Yep, I have it in my own little corporation now.
That's great.
Yeah, and so even Stallman can't do anything.
Wow.
He'd love to release a God's album here.
Yeah.
But I don't think I'm going to let him.
Yeah. Well, you know, he's putting out stuff in Europe anyway.
He sure is, and it's coming back here on vinyl.
Yeah.
And you know, I mean, if he can make a buck out of it, that's fine. I don't really care.
Yeah.
You know, as long as he doesn't release it here, I'd rather save it for the generations or wait till someone really wants to put it out.
Well, you have the master tapes, don't you?
Yeah, I do.
So you could just go for it. So if a God's record ever comes out in America and it's put out by Bernard Stallman on an American label, you have the right to sue him, in other words?
Yeah.
There you go. So around the time you finally got was that your celebration thing?
I was pissed because, you know, when Thornton and McCarthy put out their album, they put it out as the Gods, you know, or someone did. Someone changed the name and made it.
Oh, yeah, Gods Plus California, and that other one.
God, Paul Thornton and Unger and the Gods Band. Well, that really got me. I guess that made me a little scary because what I did was I went and I made sure I got the name, and I put out a God's Revival album. And really, that was going to be my own album. You know, I've been working as a matter of fact, I've filled that album in. Yeah. And I now have like 12 pieces on that album. And, you know, I call it Liberty Road. Of course, I didn't release that either. You know, that's just a thing that I just have. It's my own stuff, basically. Just like that Revival was my own stuff. That really wasn't God's. I just did that because I was angry that they did that, and they had the nerve. I mean, there were 4 Gods albums. So that was it. Yeah. And Stallman or whoever did that had no right to put out Thornton's album. I mean, Thornton and McCarthy can have all the albums they want. McCarthy's album was called Jim McCarthy Alien, and Thornton's album was called Paul Thornton, Leslie Fracken, and Bob Unger and the Big Band. And the Big Band. It wasn't the Gods.
But your record wasn't the Gods either.
Like I say, I did.
But then again, you are the Gods now. In other words,
exactly. I have the right to do that, but I only did that, and I did it before I had the right. See, I never put it out because I didn't have the right to put it out. No more than they had the right to put it. You know, those things came out where I just did it to prove that, hey, I can do that too. I was going to release that. That had nothing to do with the gods.
So it was just like
makes me scary.
It was a matter of two can play at this game. In other words.
Exactly.
All right. So who are the musicians on that record? There were a couple of musicians who helped you out. Were those local musicians?
Yes.
Were they fans of? Were they people who were fans of your music, or were they just people that you found?
Well, I went in there with a band, and the guy said, "You know something? You got all these people," and I had like 7 or 8 people that I was playing with, and he said, "You know, I can do this for you, and you don't have to worry about all these people." And that's basically what happened. Him and another guy, and then I met a few other guys, and we finished it off because, like I say, there are 12 songs on there now, and it's pretty good.
Yeah. Are you going to put it out soon?
I haven't yet, but there's a possibility I would.
Yeah. I thought it was interesting that you did a techno mix.
Yeah.
All those God samples.
Yeah. I'm sure no one ever attempted anything like that. That's basically why I did it.
Yeah.
And
it's different.
Yeah.
It's definitely different.
Yeah, it is different. And I've heard a lot of things like it since then, and especially on stuff like radio shows, you know, like Howard Stern has done things like that. And I've heard different people doing stuff like that, but not much. No, I did not. There was not any great breakthrough on that.
Yeah.
But I'm very glad I did it, and I infuriated a lot of people by doing it.
And you infuriated the right people.
Exactly.
The exact people that you wanted to piss off, you pissed off.
You got it.
And that's great.
Yeah, that's God's. You know, that's what.
The spirit of the original was to get under people's skin.
Exactly.
And have a lot of fun doing it.
Exactly, and enjoy it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, what else could it have been, you know?
Yeah.
I certainly didn't feel like I was breaking a new musical ground there, but I did feel like it fit together, and I did feel that it would definitely raise an eyebrow or 4.
Yeah. Does it surprise you that 35 years plus after those records came out that people are still obsessing over them and new people are coming in every day? And
do you really think so? Is that?
No. Do you think that?
No.
Do you think it's a surprise, or did you think back? Did you think back at the time that you were making the records that we would be having a conversation like this one, like 30 years down the line?
Not 35 years later. No.
No.
But I knew that we were doing something artistically correct because there were so many people that really didn't understand us, that we couldn't have been wrong because there were the people that needed to. If they would have understood us, then I would have felt that we were wrong. I would have felt, geez, you know, oh man, you guys were like my friends who were so non-musical, you know. I mean, they were so straight, you know. Let's put it that way. Because I come from the '50s, you know, and really we were like the generation that originated all this stuff. All the people that did all this stuff were my age, you know. And none of my friends did. They left me, oh man, you call that? And I thought, oh. You know, I mean, it didn't bother me. It made me feel like I was on the right track.
There you go. That's the way to do.
You know, if that's the case, well, then the music has to grow, you know, in people's minds. And like I said, someday, and I think more than ever, even now, that people understand us much more. I mean, just by the bands that like us. Yeah. I mean...
Well, there was there's a lot of bands that have gone on record as saying they like the Gods, and there was that tribute record. I mean, did it surprise you that there was a tribute record made?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, yeah, it did surprise me, and it was real nice. There were a lot of bands that appreciated what we did because we played our stuff backwards. I know we were the first band to ever do that. You know, the cheers on on Traveling Salesman were Rolling Stones song played backwards, and the fact we had a Z in our name, we used a Z. Yeah. We were like the first band to ever do that. There were so many things that we did, and we broke that ground, you know. Yeah. So I'm proud of those things.
That's great. And Procol Harum liked you guys too.
Yeah, they liked us. Well, actually, Jimmy was a super fan of Procol Harum. You know? and they sort of liked us, and a lot of bands liked us, but they wouldn't admit it.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody said we had the best cover song of the Beatles, and we did that, and we did it so unlike the Beatles that they appreciated that. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great. So what are you doing? What are you doing these days? What's Larry Kessler's life like these days?
Well, I have wrestling champion sons.
I
have 8 state champions. I'm known as a father of wrestling champions.
Wow.
And I have drive a cab. I have about 30,000 albums.
Wow, big record collector. That's
big
great.
record collection, and I have a lot of CDs. As a matter of fact, someday if I figure out how to go on eBay, I have unbelievable album collection.
Yeah.
And
you can make some extra money there.
Yeah, I do I have a flea market stand I've had for 14 years. I had 2 stores at one time, but I'm really not a businessman. And that's how I got all those albums. I have a lot of cassettes and CDs.
Do you have any rare tapes of the GODZ at all? Or?
No.
No, you don't?
No. I wish I did. They're out there, but there were tapes we made when we did a radio show. We did WBAI, and we took the 2 disc jockeys from WBAI, and they became our disc jockeys and our sound people. And we went out. We had a show where we got busted in Jersey. We were in Jersey, and that was on tape with the police and everything. I mean, we just did a lot of stuff.
But the police came and busted up one of your shows?
Yeah.
What happened?
Nothing. They just made everybody leave, and we did a show in North Carolina with for Mayor Baba. Did you ever hear of him?
Oh yeah, I've heard of him.
He was the Swami who never spoke.
Yeah.
He didn't speak for
Pete Townsend was a disciple.
Was he? Oh,
yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
And we did that, I think, in '68. I think that's the last show we ever did.
A concert with former Mayor Baba?
For Mayor Baba, yeah.
Wow.
And that's where we got that. Ba 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 ba. We did that.
Really?
We had a lot of fun. We really did. We did a lot of stuff.
That's great.
Yeah. All right.
Thanks a lot, Larry.
All right.
It's been great talking to you. This is an honor for me because I'm a huge fan and I love your music, and it's really been great talking to you.
Cool.
Okay.
I appreciate it.
Thank you a lot.
All right, Ray.
Very much, Larry.